Hey, listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and today we are talking about Pikmin 4. As the title may suggest, we're going to be talking about just how technically impressive this game seems to be. Now this is going to be more of a simple discussion video, got a lot going on in the background right now. At some point I may want to do more of a catered, detailed graphics comparison between Pikmin 3 and 4. But I finally got a chance to play the demo, and while there's maybe a lot going on right now, I do want to get my thoughts out here on this, because playing through it, I am just totally floored. It's a true wonder. There are some special things going on with Pikmin 4, and I really want to talk about just how impressive this game is. But before we go further, let me point out that we are aiming to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. With your help, we might have a chance. So starting off the Pikmin demo, the first thing I noticed was the lighting and the shadows. And this is something I had somewhat of a sense of after seeing the trailers, but really getting to play the game and seeing the lights and the shadows and the contrast, I really felt like there was a greater sense of depth that was shown. In general, when you have more light, things tend to look better, and this is the case in Pikmin 4, but there's also a lot of points where there are clear shadows. It's all clearly defined and seen, and it's impressive to see it all working together. You can even see little specks of dust in the air, and you can tell because of how they move around in the light. It just helps to add this extra little sense of depth. And it's nice to be moving around the environment, and you see how the light and the shadows change and move around with your character. This isn't something that's very noticeable in a lot of other Nintendo games. It's very clear and pronounced in Pikmin 4. But perhaps what makes this more impressive is the camera. So something about the camera in Pikmin 4 is that you have a lot of flexibility with it. At first glance, this game may look more like a third-person action-adventure game, kind of like a Legend of Zelda, for example, or a whole bunch of other third-person action-adventure games if you've played them. And the camera's right behind the character in these kinds of games, as it is in Pikmin 4. So you can see a lot more of the environment in a more close-up kind of way. But Pikmin hasn't always been like that. Pikmin wouldn't be described as a third-person action-adventure. It'd be described as more of something along the lines of a real-time strategy kind of game, where the camera tends to be pulled back a far bit more so you can have a better perspective of the overall map. And what's fascinating about Pikmin 4 is that you still have that option. You can pull back the camera so you can still have a more expansive view of the map in real time, the actual world you're exploring, but also you can go into the default camera setting, which is just like a straight-up third-person action-adventure game. So you get to get a greater sense of detail and scale by doing this. You can see a far more of the environment. Sure, in prior Pikmin games you can see the maps and you can see the floor that you're exploring, but you couldn't see too much of the background. Now in Pikmin 3, when you pull out the camera, you could see the environments around you, but when you look, you could see that the environments around you aren't fully rendered. They're just kind of these backdrop settings where you can clearly see a resolution drop and a detail drop. But in Pikmin 4, it looks like a fully 3D world. You can see the backgrounds. Now, people have pointed out how there is some noticeable pop-in, and yes, I have noticed that as you explore the world, you will see details pop in as you get closer. But for me, it wasn't anything too jarring, but yes, if you're looking for it, you will notice it, and maybe occasionally, even when you're not looking for it, you might notice it, but overall, didn't really take too much away from my experience. And actually, another nice little detail that in some ways may help to obscure the pop-in somewhat is the depth of field. So you can see a focus on your character and the environment around you, but to the sides and in the background there's a little bit of a blur. It does help to add a little bit more of a depth and a nice, natural, pleasant look to the game. Everything about this game is pleasant to me from a visual perspective. I really enjoy how it's all come together. And it's even more interesting when you account for the more variety in the settings. We start off the game in someone's house. We've never done that before in a Pikmin game, and what's interesting about the Pikmin games is that you are far smaller than this world you're exploring, presumably Earth. So you're exploring this house, almost kind of like as if you were playing Toy Story or something, where you are these small characters exploring this far larger world. And seeing this environment in a Pikmin game is nice to see. It's not something we've seen before. Of course, we've seen the more lush green environments as well, and it holds up really well. It stands out a lot more than prior Pikmin games. There's a lot more detail, the textures are a lot more clear, everything just looks a lot better. I wasn't sure what the frame rate is going in, but I double checked. It is 30 frames per second, but I didn't notice any real hiccups. It was totally smooth for 30 frames per second. It's not necessarily a super fast-paced game, so you don't need to be at 60 frames, but it is something worth noting. Something else I will note though, and this is just kind of like a little thing to me that I found quite valuable, is the onion, which is this fruit-like object where you pull out all of your Pikmin, and they come out a lot quicker now. In prior Pikmin games, you kind of have to wait for them to climb down. They just zoom out, and that's something I appreciate. I don't like having to wait for all my Pikmin to catch up to me. This is something that improves the gameplay. There was even a moment where I was able to call the onion and the ship over to another part of the map, and it happened instantly. Now, this may not be like an incredibly impressive thing, but there are other games where something like this might happen, and there'll be a bit of loading or hidden loading. It was instant. And the overall point I'm making here is that there are these little things that are done here that are speeding up the overall gameplay. Now, all the dialogue I had to deal with throughout the demo was kind of annoying. I kind of just wanted to play the game. But in terms of loading things in, bringing characters in, it's all quite snappy. The engine they have going here gets a lot done efficiently, which we've heard is with Unreal Engine, and that is interesting to hear that a Nintendo published game, a Nintendo developed game, is using the Unreal Engine, but it looks like they've done a great job with it, so kudos. But going back briefly to the onion, just kind of talking about textures and stuff, the onion looks like some kind of fruit, like there is a detail there that stands out more than the onions in prior games. And not to say that they looked bad in prior games, but they were more of a simple flat look. Maybe they had some shine to them that made them look nice or a glow. But this looks like a natural type of fruit or vegetable. And considering the context of what Pikmin is, I think that's a pretty meaningful difference. Another random thing I'll point out are the water effects. Now, I haven't gone too far into the game, again, it's the demo, right? But I did notice that the ripple effects didn't seem to be as pronounced as they were in Pikmin 3, so maybe you could argue that's a drawback, but maybe if you go in with more Pikmin, or if you go in with Ochi once it's bigger, there might be more pronounced ripples and effects like that, which might be nice to see. But something I did notice that did stand out to me is that you could see the environment, like the sky and the background, reflected upon the water surface, which is a really nice touch. It just helps to add to the overall believability and immersion of this game. And with that in mind, I'll also point out, it appears that there are even more animations in Pikmin 4 than there were in Pikmin 3. I noticed with the Pikmin themselves, if you leave them, there's a few different idle animations. You'll have them sitting, you'll have them dancing, you'll have them lying down, you'll have them picking at their heads with their little leaves or flowers. It's one thing to have an idle animation, but to have several when you have a number of Pikmin all around so they're doing different things, it just helps to add to the overall believability of these being individual beings working together in a group. And I also noticed that every single piece of grass or bush that you pass by will move. It will react to you passing through it. All the plant life around you does sway and move around with the wind. And it isn't to say that this didn't happen in Pikmin 3, it did, but I think the difference is that there's more things to interact with in Pikmin 4. It's a bit more pronounced, and especially with you having this camera where you can see a lot more of the environment, there's a lot more to see and notice and appreciate. So my overall sense with Pikmin 4 throughout the demo is that this is a very impressive game. I was brought in, not just from a technical perspective, but from a gameplay perspective, a music perspective. Like this, it feels like a really high quality game, and I'm very excited to play more of it. I fear some may be sleeping on Pikmin 4, and I really don't think we should be, because this is looking to be an incredible game. And following up Tears of the Kingdom, it's just kind of interesting how we have these back-to-back incredibly high quality games. Pikmin 4, from what I've seen so far, assuming it maintains this, minus incessant dialogue throughout, this could be a Game of the Year candidate kind of game. That's how high quality it's starting to look to me. We shall see. once we get our hands on the final game, but it's pretty darn good, and I am very excited about this. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andre's Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.